Who is God? That's an incredibly difficult question to answer. I've grown up in church my whole life. I remember being taught Bible stories as a young child. As I grew older, I participated in Bible Bowl. Does anybody remember Bible Bowl? And I felt the call to go into ministry when I was just a high schooler. And I've now been in full-time ministry for over 6 years. But who is God? Sometimes I just don't know how to answer that question. There are two big problems in trying to answer the question, who is God? The first has to do with the word is. Have you ever tried to define is? If you ask Google, it just responds with, come on, man, are you serious? Actually, the Google definition for is reads, third person singular present of be. Not very helpful. If I were to say what something is, what does that even mean? If I say, this is a cup, does that actually tell you what the object truly is? What is cup but a 3-letter word used to signify this particular object? We all know what I mean by cup because we have all agreed upon the meaning and symbolism behind the word cup. But who is God? We haven't all agreed on a common understanding of what the word God means. I may be having a conversation with somebody about God, but our understandings of God couldn't be more different. Like if we were having a conversation about how good of an actor Chris is, we might be really confused because I might be talking about Chris Pratt and you might be talking about Chris Hemsworth or Chris Evans or Chris Pine. You get the point. There's a story where Moses encounters God firsthand. A voice begins to speak to him, a mighty, powerful voice embodied in fire. And Moses asks this voice for its name. And the voice responds, I am. Who are you? Yes. It's like some bad take on Abbott and Costello. This God simply is. There's no symbolic combination of letters that can capture the essence of God's being. God is being itself. To say that God is fill in the blank will only ever be an incomplete simile or metaphor. Everything in this physical world derives its beingness from God. How can we then turn and assign meaning and symbols and imagery back onto God? Is your head hurting yet? Good. Then let's think about the second big problem in answering the question, who is God? When a believer is asked to think about God, her brain lights up like a Christmas tree. Many different regions of the brain are activated and begin firing all at once. Faith develops a strong, complex web of systems throughout our brains in a way similar to falling in love. Andrew Newberg, a neuroscientist who specializes in how faith and religious practices impact our brains, has made some very intriguing discoveries over the last couple of decades. One discovery is that for most devoutly religious people, our conception of God is experienced in the nonverbal, emotional, relational region of their brains. Same as it is with a spouse or significant other. When you're in love with somebody and a friend asks what you love about them, it can be very challenging to form coherent, logical thoughts on that matter. It doesn't mean you don't really love her. It's simply because our relationship is not processed in the part of the brain associated with logic, reason, or language. So the same happens with God. The same happens with God. An atheist may be able to speak about the concept of God quite more easily than a lifelong believer, because to the atheist, God is a logical problem to solve, and to the believer, God is a friend to love. That's why I think the Bible is filled with relational imagery for describing God. God is a father, a parent, a nursing mother. God is a friend, a counselor, a lover. Because that's exactly how we relate to God on a neurological level. You don't have to have all the answers to all the questions. You don't even have to be able to logically answer the question, who is God? God doesn't want our reasoned, logical arguments. God wants our hearts. God desires to live in relationship with us. The question is, do you desire to live in relationship with God?